I see Tara.
Hi, Tara.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
We're just waiting on the go-ahead from the group there in Louisville, and as soon as they tell us to begin, I'll kick things off.
All right, thank you guys.
They're kind of chilling out right now.
That's good.
This warm weather's caused them to be a little more dirty. They like to play, you know.
Yeah.
The sound quality is better.
Whose sound, Neil?
When you talked the last time, you were clear, just a delay.
Okay. They suggested I get this little microphone, and I think that's helped a lot. I think the one in the computer is not great. Okay, I got the official note. We are ready to begin. So, good morning. We would like to welcome all of you on a virtual tour of a pig farm. I'm Jennifer Osterholt. I'm on staff here in Columbus, Ohio with the Ohio Pork Council. And we've been very excited to have the opportunity to do these virtual tours and live video chats and take people from all over the country into pig barns to be able to just visit. Not quite face to face, but it can feel like it, right? With a pig farmer. And we need to begin by saying that Farm Credit was a key stakeholder to get this program launched. So we really appreciate Tara Durbin being able to work with her, as well as several other people on staff to get support. But thank you very much to Tara for championing the program, some creation of materials that help explain what's going to happen for students. And let's quit looking at me and let's take a look at the hog barn. So the most exciting person on this chat right now is a guy named Neil Rhonemus, and he is in Lynchburg, Ohio. And I'm going to begin by sharing about a time that Neil came into the office to do some, we wanted to get more farmers taking videos to put on YouTube. And we were talking about when you create a YouTube channel, you know, you need a handle, you need something sort of interesting. And we said, Neil, what's interesting about you? And what did you tell us, Neil? Do you remember what your answer was?
Oh, I suppose it was my nickname that they call me Uncle Squeal sometimes.
First, he said, there's nothing interesting about me. And we said, well, you got to come up with something. And he said, they call me Uncle Squeal. So Uncle Squeal, why don't you tell us? Why don't we take a look? Why don't you smile at everybody? And then tell us about yourself and your story and where you're at.
Hi, everybody. Well, that's kind of a funny story. Started a long time ago, and my niece and nephew called me Uncle Squeal, and it stuck with a lot of them. So you have a lot of older people running around calling me Uncle Squeal too. So that's how the handle was born there. So Lynchburg, LA, Lynchburg area, because it's between Clinton County and Highland County. And I have 2 barns down here. We raise about 10,000 pigs a year. We wean to finish, and as things have changed over the year of fair to finish buildings that I rented, and you know the scale and everything, we had to decide to do something else. So in 2001, we built this barn on our home farm that's been in my family for quite a while, and this is where my wife and I raised our children. And the barn sits 600 feet behind our house, actually. So that's what we do every day. I take care of the pigs mainly by myself, except for I have a couple helpers that help me part-time when we need them. And I'll just turn it around if you want to ask me any other questions. Let's get her going. I really appreciate the support that you've given us and bearing with us here, and really looking forward to this today.
All right, so I can prompt a few questions to begin, or you all can type questions in the chat, or you can, it looks like you've muted yourselves, both of the farm credit teams. So you can unmute and just jump in and ask a question. You can type via chat. Otherwise, until that happens, I'll prompt Neil with some questions. So how big's your barn, and where are we at in the barn right now? What are we looking at, Neil?
Well, this barn's a 2,000 head wean to finish. That means we get them at about 21 days of age, and we keep them until market, which is about 5.5 to 6 months, unless they are chosen to be marketed as replacement females. And that's our main concern, is selling breeding stock for the family that owns the pigs. And right now we're in the office area where all the controls are located.
All right. And you have 2 barns, correct?
Correct. The other barn is located about 8 miles south near Lynchburg Clay School District, school buildings, and it's a 2,400 head, and it's a more modern style what you would see today. It's a 2-room, 2,400, whereas this one's a 4-room, 2,000 head.
So would you say your other barn is in LA or on the outskirts of LA?
Well, we call it LA, any side of Lynchburg.
Good, thank you. Thanks for the clarification. All right. What questions, Tara? Why don't you jump in and sort of help prompt us? There's lots of information we could share, but we wanted to share what's most interesting to you all.
Sure. So, can you hear me okay, Jennifer?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yes,
first of all, Neil, if you don't mind, could you switch your camera around so we could see some of the controls and some of the things that you probably go in there multiple times a day, and maybe talk us through a little bit of, when you get up in the morning and you go out to check on your barns, what are some of the first things that you do?
Well, the very first thing we enter, we take a shower and change our clothes into because that's part of our biosecurity protocol. We know that health, the security of our health and the biosecurity of the building and the animals is very important, not only for our replacement female cells, but also for food safety. You know, the healthier the pigs, we don't need to treat, and we want to avoid that only when necessary.
So basically, if you keep all the pigs healthy, you don't have to use antibiotics. And
correct.
Because those are some hot questions. We get hot topics. You know, how do you use antibiotics and hormones? And how do you use hormones?
We do not use hormones in the swine industry. And
all right.
Yes.
Because you don't have access to them for growing pigs, right?
That's correct. There's none available, none used, period.
So what we're going to look at, there's a lot of added expense to, these are some expensive little boxes that we're looking at. So you'll have to tell us what they run and why that's important.
Yes, well, as I said, this barn is 17 years old, and it's a lot different when you would see in some of your new buildings, but basically we're doing the same thing. We have a set temperature, and we start at 75 degrees on the first days when the pigs get here, and every week we reduce it a degree until we get to 65 degrees. And what you're looking at right now is the main controller that's telling me the temperature right now, and everything works off of the set, which is today is 65 degrees is our main goal. Of course, we'll never achieve 65 degrees today. It's at 7 now. As you can see on this panel, it's telling me that all stage 8 fans are running. There's an indicator and a controller. Okay, and it will turn on the ventilation fans as needed, also opening the air inlets as needed. And then each room has a set of those controls. And here we have the feed controllers, which is very important. It's on a timer that runs the feed augers at intervals that we preset. Also in our barn, we have storage area where we keep the brooders for where the baby pigs. Piglets these are placed above a heated mat. Propane heats the zone where the young pigs are to approximately 83 degrees. And then we've used that for a couple weeks until the pigs are the right age and to utilize the right temperature for them. And right above the control panel, sorry for the jerkiness there, this is our sensophone alarm system. It monitors the temperatures and the water pressure, the sound of this room, the temperature ranges if it should exceed or drop below them, and it calls me through the phone. It'll call about 800 times if you let it, but it'll keep calling the pre-selected numbers that I place until somebody cancels it, answers it, and cancels it.
Neil, could you talk about what would trigger some of those sensors that would alert you that you would need to be worried about?
The temperature change exceeding the parameters that we set in it, which would be about 20 degrees above our set or below our set temperature. Also, the water pressure would drop below. In 3 minutes, if the water pressure dropped, it would call me. In less than 2 minutes, if the power failed, it would call me. And that's how we have to also monitor that machine to make sure that it's operating properly.
So you have to keep fans running so that all of these systems help keep your investment, your animals growing at the best rate possible, right? By keeping them comfortable, they're going to eat and drink and just grow on their own. But if there is an issue, I think you've all probably seen some times that can be a very serious challenge for the animals and for many other people involved. So Neil's got a lot of extra investment to help notify him, because obviously if the animals are out of water, big deal. If they're out of electricity, the fans quit running, they don't have fresh air, big deal. So he's got to have somebody in LA about all the time, you know, so somebody that's ready, so that they can be prepared to address problems. And that's in addition to his regular chores.
So Jennifer and Neil, can you talk with us a little bit about some of why housing the pigs in a barn is actually to the pigs' benefit? I mean, because you'll hear comments, or people will think that, well, they want to be outside on grass, or, you know, they want to be rolling in the mud. And that could be some images that we've all had from our childhood and in storybooks and that sort of thing. So can you talk about really why housing them in a barn that is fully controlled is actually better for them versus being outside? Because I know, you know, in our area, in our neck of the woods, you know, we pass these barns along the road, and some people don't know what those barns are or what's in them, and why it's better for the pigs to be in that barn versus outside.
Can we look at your pigs while we listen to this, Neil?
Sure can.
Thanks.
I can absolutely handle that, because I've been there and waiting for the camera to switch. There we go. I've raised pigs outside in the mud and the dirt. I've raised pigs in semi-confinement situations where the solid concrete, and they were still exposed to the weather. And I can absolutely tell you that in this country, not every place is suitable to raise hogs outside. We have too much rainfall, not enough drainage. The mud hole is nice for the pig, but they soon become out of hand. You constantly have to fill them. You're exposed to outside disease pressure from animals, predators. The sun beats down in the summer, the cold winter. I'm not really dramatizing this, because I've lived that. I've carried bales of straw out to boxes daily to bed sows down in boxes on a hillside every day, and still couldn't keep them dry enough. So when you get that pretty picture of that little that peg out there, or that mama peg laying into the grass, that's one day. You get a rain, extreme temperature change, that pig's in there for more than a few days, where it gets overcrowded. It destroys that area. It's very close to my heart that animal care, and I've given animal care to those outside animals as well, as you can see what I got in here. It's all about the provider and who's taking care of them. And that's why this program is very important, that I can reach out with my experience, because I've lived it. I absolutely have. And I can tell you, in Southwest Ohio, where I live, I could not even raise a third of the animals that I do on the resources available to me. And if we're going to provide food for a growing population, that's very important, not only for the people, but for the animals that we care for, and the efficiency that we desire to have in production of them. So does that answer your questions there, Sarah?
Yeah, it does. Maybe talk a little bit about like the slatted floor, and kind of the design and the different pens, and maybe even just share how many pigs that barn will hold.
This barn holds 2,000, as I said before. I've done a little rehab to this building. We're having a little conflict down there. Can you still hear me okay?
Yeah.
Somebody wants into the feeder. I added more waters. I opened up the pens. I combined 4 pens into one with a catch pen, which is where you're looking now. I have another gate that I can slip across there, because we have to identify our pigs for shipping the replacement female, so we have to be able to catch them. But in essence, we took 4 pens and made them into one. We're still looking at a 5 square foot per adult animal. I mean, when they reach their maximum age. Back to the manure part. As you can see in front of me, it's very clean and dry. And how that is achieved by the inlets up above, we're drawing air through the inlets down through the slats, and that's what dries the floor out. The waste, I'm going to climb over the pen. The waste falls through the slats, but you can see, and it's stored in a, basically it's a pit that's under the whole building. We store that there for, we have a year's storage, but we like to pump out in the spring and the fall normally because we need our weather down here. We have a lot of excess rain and we have a short window, so we take every opportunity we can to pump out our buildings. Over here's the dirty part. Pigs don't really like to lay where they do their thing, you know. So you have the dry, clean areas, and that's true whether you were outside in a pen outside or inside a barn. Pigs like to keep a clean, dry place to sleep, except when it's hot, and then they'll seek out anything that's wet and yucky, no matter where you're at. Here we're getting water's delivered through pipeline system into a cup below, and I can't find this. There we go. It's pressurized. The water comes out. I'm going to leave the pen now because they decide they want to chew on me. Can you still hear me well?
Yes, you're doing great. Something that I wanted to share, you know, even though you're walking through the pen and getting bitten right now, for our entertainment, thank you. There's still several pigs laying down, and if you weren't in the barn, and there'd be even more pigs laying down, which they do quite a bit of the day. Is that correct?
That's right. And during the warm time of day, they'll be laying out, chilling. I'll move you down now to an area where there's more pigs laying down. These pigs are more active because I'm right here today, right now. The first pen you've been looking at has some taken out of already. This pen I'm coming up on now is a fully stocked pen. I want you to notice that it may look crowded to you, but if I can hold it right, you can pick out a lot of space that they haven't utilized. And these pigs aren't done growing yet. They're only about 200 pounds. So the square footage, that kind of an industry standard, is about 5 square feet for these animals. And they're just chilled out. They're ready for their afternoon nap. They can eat and drink whenever they choose. That's why it's important that we monitor our systems so the water and the feed are delivered through the pipe you see in front of you. And it travels down the, probably can't see that because of the glare outside, but it travels out there from the feed bins outside. In this barn I have 2 smaller pens, and they're a TLC pen. So these pigs have been recovered from being either sick or hurt. And then once they recover, we continue to mix them together till we get a pen and we don't want to waste our footage, but we want to give the pigs extra care so we get them as a marketable pig. And of course, we want to save every pig we can. That's just a part of how we do things, whether we were inside or out.
What about any questions from our folks in the Louisville office? I don't know if you guys had some questions prepared or if just through your conversations this morning, you guys have spurred any kind of questions. I do think you guys are on mute, so you might want to make sure to unmute.
I will, one other thing, these mats on the wall, you see hanging, we'll place them on the floor, and they'll be underneath a brooder there where the piglets will keep warm. Then we remove it when they're big enough.
Okay.
Hello, Louisville, are you there?
I think you are still on.
So can you hear us now?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so we've got some questions from the group here. One of the questions was, how do you sort between pens with the hogs that's in there when those are ready to go to market?
Oh, good question.
I think
we have
again while Neil's speaking. Thank you.
We have sorting panels, which I'll show you in 1 second. There you go. Little sorting panels, you'll see. Right there's a rattle paddle that is good for a lot of things, but you shake this little, move them down the aisles. Other sorting panels that there, we recycle a lot of stuff, so there's our high school team logo on the side of that board. But we go in 2 to 3 of us, and we take we call it a sorting board, and we go through and guide them out the doorway. And then as we get them out here, we're in the loading chute area right now, going out to the truck. Okay.
And then Neil, when you're sorting them, do they all go at the same time, or do you choose certain ones? And how do you know which ones to choose if that's the case?
We have a quality control officer. Usually comes in. They select the pigs that we need and process our orders that are being shipped for the female replacements. Otherwise, the other pigs come in, going out to market, are sorted by weight. It's an eyeball thing yet in our situations. And typically, a pen full of pigs that hasn't been taken out of yet will go in, and usually 5 to 10 of those pigs will make that cut. Once you get that first cut out of the building, the pigs have a little extra room, and pigs are really growing at that rate, at that stage in their life. So it goes pretty quick then. But the idea is to hit that sort. Well, it's the sort they call it, and it's the variation between the truckload in the weight. And that's very important because the owners get paid accordingly, the premium on each carcass, and they need to hit that target weight. So it's very important that animals, and we actually put the right animals on the truck.
Should we go back to Neil?
Yes, we have another question, Neil, that revolves around the that you were speaking through. What's the average target weight for the animals, and roughly how long does it take to get that animal from 21 days to the target weight? And then another question that kind of ties into that is basically how many turns through that barn per year when you're thinking about generating income?
I'll take the easy one first. It's 2.1 turns, basically. And it usually takes up to 5.5 months to 6 months to produce that hog that reaches that target of 60 to 280, and that's live weight. Having said that, you know, my specialty is taking out replacement females, so a lot of times our target are different than the others, but that's the industry. And a barrow barn could go a lot faster. I have heard of some of them starting to be out of there at 4.5 months. We also are growing maternal line females, so they are a little bit slower growing. A hybrid cross, or you know, so our pigs are targeted for maternal instincts. So that's a little different than a production of market pig.
So making a lot of milk.
Yes, making milk and making babies.
A quick follow-up question to that, Neil. What breed of pigs do you have in the barn, and what's the genetic makeup?
These pigs are basically a private line, PIC, Pig Improvement Company. Our farms are in contract with them to produce those females. Basically a purebred Yorkshire, Landrace, Duroc mixed in. There's a whole lot of different things that I don't know, but we do produce purebred Yorkshires for our replacement herds and our own females going back to our sow units. And they are pedigreed and indexed. Indexed meaning all the productivity through that litter, a 100 being an average. So when they're selecting females, they want to achieve anything over the 100. So 110 would be very desirable. That means it would be 10% better than the herd average.
What percentage of the females in your barn do you typically pull out for replacement versus market animals?
Well, they usually farrow us about 30 females each week that go back into this feeding pen for our own. And I don't have much to do with that other than to take care of them. But our selection rate for the whole building for replacement females going to our customers is we usually hit 80% of the animals in the building. Having said that, sometimes they get canceled before they get there, you know, and end up going to market. So it's, as you can see, the production and the scheduling of people taking in their replacements and us shipping them out, we have to hit that window. So if for some reason somebody has a problem between us and the customer, we have to get rid of those animals because we need that space for the next group coming in. So it's quite a complicated process, and it takes very good management skills to keep that going.
So big picture of the industry, Neil, we raise about 118 million hogs a year in the United States, and you're raising some animals for meat, but you're getting the pigs once they're weaned. So once they're done drinking milk, you transition them to solid feed and raise them until breeding age. Or, you know, if there's something, so there could be some things about an animal, maybe it's a little bit stiff-legged. You know, I'm sure a lot of you have experience showing animals and choosing. So something can be a good quality meat animal that you might not want to keep to be a part of your breeding herd. And Neil is working with a bigger farm that owns the mother sows, the mother pigs, takes care of piglets, has a team of employees with that specialized equipment. Look at that. And then you're in such a unique area of the country. A lot of places that raise pigs, there's a lot more livestock, and there's some diseases, some germs that are aerosol spread. So hills break that up, and there's not a lot of density of livestock. So it's easier for you to have very high health animals, and you want those to go on to be mothers in many cases. So that's why you're showering in. And that's sort of a niche market that the larger farm works with several people like you to serve. And you do a fantastic job with that. So is there anything else you have to add to that I missed, Neil? Ohio, so out of the 118-ish million hogs, Ohio raises about 5% of the hogs nationwide.
That's right. And one of the big concerns that we have today in the Google project is so important is we're disconnected from the farming community. There's less than 1.5% of your customers raise are farmers. Even less than that are livestock farmers. I don't know what a rice farmer does. An almond farmer, I don't have a clue what they do hardly. They don't have a clue what I do. So we need to make sure that we're getting to the consumer that wants to know. Many times, you know, there's a lot of misinformation out there, a lot of conjecture. Even those people in your room right now may have a lot of misconceptions about what we're doing. And it's very important that the consumer knows that we care what we're doing, because a growing number of those consumers, they are interested in how their food's being produced. It may not be very many, but they're very vocal, and they're the ones that get out there and seek that out. On the other hand, we have a large group out there that want to put out the misinformation. We see that every day now, but know that we are individual farmers. We care about what we're doing. We don't want to pollute the environment. We want to care for animals, provide safe affordable food. And we're just like they are. We go to work every day and do our job. So I really appreciate that you're helping us out to do that.
Yes, that is huge. So Neil, I haven't shared with you yet, but Neil has hosted a blogger or two last year because he's really good at this sort of stuff and he's willing to do it. So we're very grateful for that, because without people like him, we couldn't do virtual tours or whatever. So anyway, back to the blogger tour. That blogger's been to a couple different farms, and I think she's got a blog post coming up in the next week or two that might be nice to share with the group. But, you know, there's so many myths surrounding pork, pigs, pork, and farmers. And we actually just did a query. I think this is fascinating. So the phrase, "Is pork bad for you?" 2,500 people a month search that. And we're going to try to get some of those keywords, you know, in some posts, blog posts, other social media posts that we can incorporate some of the good stuff to help bust up some of those myths, we hope. So sorry, back to Louisville. I know you all had just unmuted your line.
So we do have a few more questions. One of the questions revolved around sick pigs and how do you segregate those and then work those back into the herd. And then you might also talk through the vaccination programs that you use in the barns.
Okay. Well, first you identify that pig has a problem, and then we would seek out the proper medicine to use it. Then it's recorded. Just about every pig has an ID in it. If it doesn't have an ID in it, we put a red paint mark on it. That's an alcohol-based paint that lasts several days. It's recorded, not only the individual number, but the PIN number is recorded, which, oh, I got some noise there, which means the time that that particular drug clears their system and it's safe to market that pig, which varies on any product you might use. So therefore, it's very important to identify the product, identify the pig, identify the withdrawal time. That pigs that need to be separated into another pen, as I said, we have the TLC pens, and we put them in there, and a TLC pen would not do us any good if it was overcrowded. So we have so many empty pens to utilize. Once those pigs get healed up, cleared up, we mix them with another group of pigs that like size, like condition, and continue them on out. Many times they don't need to be removed from the pen. However, they're just still indicate what they're used, what we use identified in. On the vaccines, currently we use 2 vaccines. I'm at a loss right now. One is for ileitis, the other one is for erysipelas, which is a joint debilitating disease, and those are quite common to use them. They're delivered in the water at appropriate times early on in their growth cycle. They also have a withdrawal, which is fairly easy to handle because you're treating a whole room of pigs and in their life. And there are other vaccines delivered prior to the time that I get them. However, I'm not involved in that. But you know, vaccines are a tool to prevent problems down the road. Does that answer the question there?
So Neil, the larger farm that you work with that owns the animals has a veterinarian on staff, or they would hire additional veterinarians just as needed to work with you. And then they also provide a staff person, which we might call a service person, that you can go to if you have questions just about anything with your barn or taking care of the pigs. Is that correct?
That's correct. In fact, I'm going to visit with the doctor today when she comes around. It's a monthly visit. They also provide the blood samples necessary for allow our pigs to go through interstate movement. Provide the health paper that must be on that truck when it leaves here.
We had another question, Neil, about feed and rations. One of the questions was, do you raise your own corn and soybeans to feed those pigs? You might talk through maybe, if you would, the rations and how you change the rations for the growth cycle of the pig and how the feed comes into the farm.
Oh, sure. I don't raise any of the feed. It all comes from a feed mill close by, and the grower pays for the feed, actually. I only get paid for the use of my building and providing the service that I provide. During the growth stages, there are 9 stages when I have them. The first station ration is very critical that we get the right amount into those pigs, so we hand deliver that. When that ration is completed, we move on to the next. And those rations, I base that on a budget that I'm given. So when I call the feed mill, they need to know how many pigs, of what age, what stage I'm starting. Once I report that, twice weekly I report my bin levels to the feed mill, and they deliver the proper feed. So in the sequencing of those diets, it's very important that I give the feed mill accurate information and they deliver the proper ones. And once the first ration has been delivered, the rest of our rations have no drug additives or anything like that. It's just straight feed. It has soybean, corn, mineral, and protein. It's everything that we need.
We had another question, Neil. You are a wean to finish operation there, but a question came up about the productive life of a sow. Would you have any insight into the parity levels of sows and how long a sow remains productive in a herd?
Well, any insight I would have would be quite outdated because I've been away from the sow herd for some time. And Jennifer's probably more equipped to tell you that and updated.
I think about 3 parities would be an average.
I can tell you that about 10% of the herds has a replacement rate of about 10%. So each cycle they would add approximately 10% new animals into that, as they call the sows. Are we still there?
Yes. Great questions.
Good.
So I have another question also. So can you talk through, I see the slats in the floors. You can see that where the manure flows through. Can you talk through how that is managed also?
I lost part of that. Did you ask me manure management?
Yes, that was correct.
Oh, yes. We have a comprehensive nutrient management plan, which has been in place since before most people even knew what they were. Right now we're updating my 6th one. They need to be updated about every 4 to 5 years. We test the manure. We use actually the test from the manure from the previous application, which the manure samples themselves vary not much at all, not much variation. The fields have been tested yearly most of the time. That's our goal, but sometimes it's every other year. But that's fairly consistent too. Once you know your land that you're going to and the records we keep, we can pretty much predict. But by soil testing, we can keep our target where we want. We apply the manure accordingly to the field to produce a corn crop most generally in our area. And if you're talking about a number of 8,000 gallons per acre is a good number to land that has received it before. By rotating, we're allowed to spread that out. Phosphorus is not a problem because we feed a phytase reducing product that goes into the pig, which actually benefits the pig for other reasons, but a side benefit is it reduces the excretion of phosphorus. So the manure is applied in the fall typically, but we also apply in the spring. when our weather permits us, because, as I said before, we have a high rainfall in our area, and it can be a very short window. But you know, our goal is to agronomically apply the manure to get the best results from our product, and you know, to be in a good manner that we don't add to the pollution problem, which we all know could exist in some areas of the country, and we all contribute to that, whether we're a farmer or we live in a city.
Neil, let's talk about money. Why'd you build the first hog barn, and then why'd you build the second one several years later?
Well, we built the first one because I really got hurt badly in '98 when the hog market really crashed out, and I had some rented ground that sold because the family had got older, and the main person there passed away. So we realized that we had to do something else, so we built the first barn, and I still maintained a job part-time. And after a few years, we were able to build a second job, and since 2005, I've been full-time doing this, and it's all driven by economics. You know, you got to try to achieve the income level that you'd like to have, and I guess we're always still looking to improve that, but basically, you know, that's why we did the two barns. It gave me opportunity to stay home and farm full time, because we only have 60 acres here in one location, and as you all know, the competitiveness of the farmer today and the land available and the resources available out there, you know, this was the best way for me to go at that time.
Neil, can you add to that? You know, how are you using contracts to kind of offset some of that risk of price volatility and stuff like that?
I didn't hear all that question. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
How do you use contracts?
Well, I do not contract. The only contract I have is I have contracted to feed these pigs for a certain amount of time and get paid a certain amount per pig space in my building, and that contract varies. I mean, that's a set contract, and it also has bonuses built in for me when we achieve certain productivity levels and mortality. As I said before, we do not own the pigs, so that's all up to the owners to market the pigs. We're charged with the care and health and safety of the pigs and maintaining a good environment for them and all the other things that associate with that.
So, as we're talking about how you generate income, does the manure have any income value to you, or is that something that you use on your own 60 acres to decrease your fertilizer costs?
Well, that is a way to achieve value from the manure, because we decrease the use of commercial fertilizer. On my own land, I haven't bought any appreciable amount of fertilizer for 17 years, actually. Our calcium levels are rising when we apply the hog manure. I do market the manure to some farmers in the area, and I don't have trouble. Actually, I have a waiting list to receive it if I could do that. Some parts of the country, it's quite profitable, but in my area, I'm just really very appreciative to get my cost of application out of it, which is really a good amount for us. So can I ask a question?
You should. We're nearing the end of our time frame, but I think you deserve that privilege.
I would like to know if one person there is just totally blown away by a misconception that they had about what somebody like me might do, and what that might be in a brief manner.
Great question.
Any misconceptions in the group? So one of the pieces of feedback we've just gotten is They were surprised at how much room the pigs had. They thought they would be more packed in the barn, and they were very healthy and with lots of room and very comfortable. So that was kind of some feedback. You know, the perception of just seeing a barn when you're driving down the road versus actually seeing what goes on inside is very beneficial.
Well, that's great. That hits right to what we're trying to do. You know, as Jennifer said earlier, bust myths, and you know that. So I really appreciate that. That's really good feedback. Really thank you very much.
You're welcome. Another piece of feedback was very happy pigs and very healthy. So
great.
Again, I'd like to conclude by just thanking all of you for your time. We know you have a lot of commitments, a lot of expectations in your job. So thank you. Thank you very much for taking the time to share with us. And again, thank you for making those dollars available to support these sort of programs, because there's a lot of people like Neil, you know, he's not going to make any money from doing this today or from doing his virtual farm tours. And he's still got a lot of commitments to fulfill also to keep his contract and, you know, other components of the farm going. So we're especially grateful for Neil and for all of his time. Neil, I'm going to present you now. Where can people find you? Like if we want to hear from you again or know more about Neil Rhonemus, Uncle Squeal, where can we do that?
Well, that's good. Thank you. Facebook page is Uncle Squeal's Pig Farm. Right now I'm retroing a lot of stuff, but it's all current. There's a lot of stuff that goes way back. And I also, of course, you'll find me on YouTube with some videos. And then if you want to get into some silliness and day-to-day stuff and how I feel about other things, Ron Farm on Twitter. That's just Ron Farm Twitter, or just my name. And I kind of get off the wall sometimes there, but I think you'll enjoy that, and I appreciate you once again for stopping in. Yes, Tara, you should try that sometime.
It's RHON, Ron Farm.
Yes.
Well, great. I'm sure, like I said, Neil's a volunteer, so if anyone else has any other feedback that you want to unanimously share, you know, he would appreciate it. He'd love to hear it. We're always open to how we can make these better. When we're visiting with elementary kids, we've recently been asking for, like, you know, on a show of hands, how many months until a pig gets to market weight? You know, so kids hold up their hands, they get excited. We'll ask, you know, thumbs up or thumbs down. We didn't get quite as interactive today with you all, but there's just things like that we're working to do better, and keep telling us. So thank you.
I just want to thank, on behalf of Farm Credit, thank Neil for his time today, and just sharing your story with us and helping to provide safe and healthy and affordable food for us all. We need more farmers to share their stories. So appreciate that. Jennifer, appreciate the work you do with the pork producers. And the RCO, I'm really appreciative that you guys were interested in just learning more. And that's exciting for us in retail. So any way we can help bridge some of those gaps for you guys, if there are any, we would love to do that, and vice versa. So I know retail can learn a lot from you all too, with the work that you guys are doing. It's still relatively new to us. So please feel free to share and invite us down to visit you as well.
Yeah, we just appreciate your partnership with Farm Credit, Jennifer and Neil. Yeah, with pork producers. You know, definitely has been a great relationship. You know, with the model barns and now this, the Google Hangout piece of it. So we definitely appreciate that.
Great. It takes a team.
So from Louisville, we just want to thank definitely Neil for taking his time today, and Jennifer and Tara for help putting this together. It's been very beneficial, and we've learned a lot. So thank you all.
Thanks. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks.